was a curious question from a certain personality type. I won't go into that further, but simply, you know, people go away, particularly this time of year in Europe anyway, in America, in the Northern Hemisphere, on holiday. And that's a kind of period of time where people feel free to let go, to wind down, to relax, to renew, to refresh. And a curious question is, why do we need that? But the answer is in just what I've just said, that we often need a change of scenery that enables us to draw a line under anything which was stressful in our life. It could be the place that we're in, it could be the circumstances we're in, and just to have a shift. And so is it any different going on holiday to going on pilgrimage? Because a pilgrimage, you'll surely have the same effect and retain the element of spirituality along with it. There was an original question like that: when we're on holiday, how can we maintain our spiritual practice and so on? And the question introduces a misunderstanding about what spiritual practice is. Spiritual practice is simply tuning our attention continuously into the glory of the divine. Now, if we do it properly, we won't necessarily need a change of environment, but then, we are also human. And so it's not that we are perfected yogis necessarily, and we'll automatically have an equilibrium of mind in all circumstances. So that means we don't have any stress whatsoever. And if you simply say, well, that's how things should be, it's not very helpful to people, because people are still trying to cultivate that sense of equilibrium that comes with karma yoga. Karma yoga means that all our attention is dedicated to unit activities in the here and the now. In other words, doing the same activities as anybody else, or same activities that we ourselves would do in our particular field, or even in a general field: eating, cleaning, washing, communicating. These are all human activities, and they're necessary activities. A very interesting passage from the Gospel of Ramakrishna. And so after discussing a few things and so on, Girish Chandra Ghosh, who, as you know, is involved in the Bengali theatre there, and he's there sitting with the master, enjoying the company, obviously. And it says, it was late at night, and Girish asked Haripada to call a cab. We think of a cab as a kind of Uber or taxi. Well, same kind of thing, except it's in the 19th century, so it is a cab with a horse. But clearly the intention is the same thing. He doesn't want to walk late at night. And Girish says, oh, that I should have to go to the theatre and leave you here. I have to go to the theatre, I have to do my job, I have to leave you here. This is life. Left to me, I would sit here and enjoy the sweet nectar of your company. But life has gotten in the way and I have to go, and I'm regretting it. Now, you see, this is a historic scene, but in spiritual life, it is the same. We are always in the presence of the divine. There is no holiday for it, not from the divine's point of view. The divine is something like an investor that continues things going for you, giving you opportunities, what we generally call grace, a flow of divine grace flowing toward us, most of which we just take for granted. Even the thought, even the listening capacity that is happening now, even the words that are flowing, is all due to divine grace. But we don't often think about it. So what is the Ramakrishna saying? He's not saying, oh, no, forget about the theatre. Come and continue sitting here, please. He says, no, you must hold to both, to me and to your activity in the theater. He's saying, go and do what you have to do, but take me with you. In other words, do it as a karma yoga. Not only as a karma yoga, but as something useful. And Girish replies, I've been thinking of leaving the theater to the youngsters, going into retirement. And what is the master saying? Ramakrishna. He's saying, no, it's all right. You are doing good to many. Your activity is doing good to everybody, to many people. And if you take any activity that anybody does, it will always inevitably be for the good of somebody else, even though we may not understand it or take it that way. He's going to the theater, he's putting on some creative activity, people are enjoying it. He's doing some good. He's lightening people, elevating people's minds, particularly, of course, because Girish's plays are based on religious events. So they have the capacity to elevate people's minds. Don't take it as a chore, oh yes, leave it to the youngsters, and then I can sit by you all the time. Knowing Girish, he wouldn't even have been happy with that because very clearly he's restless. In other words, he's human. So Narendra then says in a whisper, because Naren is sitting there as well, the later future Swami Vivekananda. He's saying, just a moment ago, he, meaning Girish, was calling him, meaning Ramakrishna, God, an incarnation. And now he's attracted to the theater. Kind of poking fun in a gossiping way, in a critical way. And the commentary goes on, and Mahendra makes the commentary, says, you see, Narendra was sitting beside the master, and the master looked at him intently and suddenly moved closer to his beloved disciple. And Narendra didn't believe in God's assuming a human body. This incarnation, he didn't believe in it. That's another very important lesson. Should we teach the incarnation? It's a central theme in Christianity. And you may even extend it to other religions, because what is Islam without Muhammad? Now, Muhammad is just seen as a prophet. But, you see, still a personality. So, Sri Ramakrishna's heart overflowed with love to his disciple, for his disciple. How does Mahendranath know that? He must be looking at the body gestures, looking at the look of the eyes. He said to Narendra, as long as a person argues about God, he has not realized him. You two were arguing. I didn't like it earlier. You two were arguing. I didn't like it. Now, arguing takes our mind away from God, even if we're arguing about God. You find many debates now in media. Does God exist? Does God not exist? And so on. Or even in various sectarian arenas, we might call it. One person defending a theology here, another person defending a theology there. Yesterday, I was at Imam Hussein annual conference, because this time of the year, the Shiites, Muslims in particular, will be making a big celebration about the martyrdom and the character example of Imam Hussein. For those who don't know the story, we can make a very shortened version that the caliphate in the Islamic world went to a very disreputable lineage. So the caliphate currently was run by a person who is known throughout Islam now to be somebody of Machiavellian character, but no spirituality whatsoever. Not really what we might call a good example of the high principles of Islam. And so he then wants allegiance from that the one who should be the ruler, namely Imam, we call him Hussein. His brother had died, it would have passed on to him, and it was generally accepted by many people that that was the case, and it was in accordance with a promise made by the one who was ruling his father. Anyway, cut a long story short, he was sitting in Medina. Assassins came, he saw the threat to him and his family. He moved to Mecca. Mecca is an area which is sacred. No killing, not even a fly should take place, killing of a fly in the sacred place of Mecca. But assassins were coming there. So to preserve the holiness of the city, he goes away. And on his way to this Karbala, a place in Iraq, he gets confronted and he's forced into a war, and he has 70 people with him only, and on the other side is something like 3,000 to 5,000 people, and it just happens to be the time of prayer, and Hussein then stops for prayer. All 70 people stop and they go and pray. In that circumstance, the other side comes and slaughters them all, including Hussein, who is the grandchild, actually, the grandson of the Prophet Muhammad. So anyway, there's this great celebration which is taking place there. These noble ideas are there. Clearly, Hussein is not a warfare person, wants peace at all costs, and comes in humility and is faced with overwhelming odds and is prepared to sacrifice himself and his family because he's not prepared to acknowledge the rulership of somebody who is so depraved. That's the idea. So in that, you could easily see a split there with various argumentations going on various sides around personalities as well. But what transcends it all is the simple, noble ideas of the holy people, the ones who want to live a life of peace, the value of justice, and above all, the value of love, because everything will come from that. Even if you say love of justice, love of truth, that holds the same meaning. The fundamental value is that love. Then Krishna says, so I don't like all this argumentation. The nearer you approach God, he says, the less you reason and the less you argue. The silence becomes the mode, because knowledge, if you say, my name is so-and-so, and somebody says, I doubt that, what will you do? Show your passport or something, or birth certificate or something? No, you'll say, leave the man, he's a fool. I know my name. So my name is this. As long as I know it, that's all. You may dispute it, you may argue about it, but who cares? Knowledge gives us a security that allows an element of silence and lack of repetition. How do we know that we have knowledge itself? Well, it's the lack of the necessity to repeat something. If I know my name, I don't have to repeat it a million times and think that with every repetition, my name diminishes. I have to top it up again. The knowledge means I don't have to repeat it. It's an established thing. So he says, when you attain him, then all sounds, all reasoning and disputing, they come to an end. Then you go into this samadhi, this transcendent state whereby you are communing with God in silence. Now it so happens we have a silent retreat coming up, 12th of September, advertised today, and advertised on another group. So that is an opportunity for this level of communion in a silent retreat. So if you want to attend, then you put your name down, because we already have, let's say, 7 or 8 people probably subscribed to it. Anyhow, the master gently stroked Narendra's body and simultaneously touched his chin, uttering sweetly the holy words, Hari Om, Hari Om, Hari Om. And he was fast becoming unconscious of the outer world. Such a beautiful description. His hand was on Narendra's foot, and still in that mood, gently stroked Narendra's body. Slowly, a change came over his mind, and with folded hands he said to Narendra, "Sing a song, please. Then I shall be all right. I shall come out of this mood. How else shall I be able to stand on my own feet?" and so on. Now, did the master go on holiday? And when Narendra sang, did he go into this ecstatic state continuously as well? But going on holiday reminds us that we have the capacity to relax. Now, elsewhere he mentions in a similar a passage just before that, and he's talking about three ways. So one way is, he says, I've observed that a man acquires one kind of knowledge about God through reasoning and another kind through meditation. What he's saying is reasoning the impermanence of the world and catching on to the idea of the permanence. This is jnana yoga. But he acquires, and then another one through meditation. In meditation, you get this revelation. But he acquires a third kind of knowledge about God when God reveals himself to him, his devotee. That's the divine grace. I know that the person who invented the computer, this sudden flash he had, he was on holiday in a wonderful place that I happen to have been to in my life, Lake Tahoe, beautiful amongst the mountains and lake and beautiful scenery. But he's not happy. And suddenly he gets a divine inspiration about consciousness. And he experiences consciousness everywhere. And immediately that changes his mood. It gives him solutions to scientific questions. And not only that, but he then has a transformation in his life. Now, in this day and age, scientists don't like saying God, so consciousness is what is the word that is being used. And how does it work? So he says, do you know what it's like? Supposing a person is in a dark room, he goes on rubbing a match against a matchbox, and all of a sudden a sudden light comes. Likewise, if God gives us this flash of divine light, all our doubts are destroyed. Can one ever know God by mere reasoning? Now, there's a passage, of course, in the Katha Upanishad, which gives us an insight into that. But all the passages in the Upanishads are very brief. Brief deliberately because they give us an opportunity to take that, memorize it, and then understand what does it mean. So the quotation is from Katha Upanishad, second section, or second chapter, second section, 23rd stanza. It begins off, Nayam Atma Pravachanana Lapyo Na Midayana Bahula Shrutina. But the second part is also very telling. First part says, the self can be attained neither, in other words, it cannot be attained, through sermons. If you think this is a sermon, don't think that you'll get any enlightenment from it. Nor by intelligence, by reasoning it out, arguing and so on, nor by listening a lot to the scriptures. There are people who repeat the scriptures over and over again, some through rote learning. In the UK, I came across a group who were studying the Yoga Saptashtamani, the Durga Mahatmyam, where passages are there. These are a group of Tamil people finding Sanskrit very difficult, and they're doing an online tutorship. And the teacher's insisting you have to have the Sanskrit absolutely correct, and they have no idea what it means. But they know they're doing something sacred, but I pointed out to them, meaningless, unless you know what it means. So the self cannot be attained by any of these methods. Books are books. You may have a whole row of books, but they don't jump off the shelf and transform your life. You can read them and the mind can absorb them. That can be a clue that can be uplifting and transformative. He whom the self chooses, the Atman, the divine self chooses, by him the self can be gained. In other words, this is a passage on divine grace. To him the self, God, Atman, the great, great emperor within, to him the self reveals its subtle nature. And then it goes on to how do you get that? Well, you have to prepare the way for it. When Jesus comes to his guru, his teacher, John the Baptizer, it's all to do with preparing the way. It's a great lesson. We have to prepare the way, and the way is purification. We have to purify the mind. So, there's a wonderful passage there in the Katha Upanishad, Yamevesha vrunote tena lavyas tasyesha atma vivrunote tanam sam. He who the self chooses. Very important. In other words, divine grace at a given moment. When the mind is in an open state of potential creativity, grace is flowing. You catch that and don't doubt it. Now, what has that got to do with the whole question of holiday? When we are relaxed, when we don't have any particular stress, when we're occupied usefully in beautiful surroundings, by people close to us, we can breathe a sigh of the fresh air of change and absorb that and use that as an opportunity. Something like a pilgrimage. Why do people spend fortune going on pilgrimages? Some do it with a state of anxiety to get something. Hundreds and thousands of people go to Lourdes for a cure, but others just go because it's a holy place and be a recipient to whatever flows, divine grace flows. And some lucky recipients, when divine grace flows, has a transformative effect, not only on the mind, but also the material thing associated with it, namely the body. And we say, oh, a miracle happened, the person was cured. Body and mind you cannot separate. Our Vedanta physics, if you want to call it like that, tells us there is no difference between body and mind. In fact, the body is as a result. It is as a kind of a crystallization of what you think and what you ever have thought in the past. It's arriving here today. So we have to take a holiday period and understand that from a physical point of view, emotional point of view, from an intellectual point of view, from an overall health point of view, and a spiritual point of view, a holiday is a valuable thing. And there's only a particular type of personality who might ask the question, why do we go on holidays? How is it that we can relax when we go on holidays? And in other circumstances we cannot. Was because in the familiar circumstances, day to day, non-holiday, you don't take the same attitude. When you take the same holiday attitude toward waking life that you do on holiday, then you have found a wonderful formula where you benefit physically, emotionally, and so on and so forth. But if we haven't gotten there, if we are still, attempting to cultivate a habit, then naturally, holiday is great relief. And so blessed are the opportunities to go on holidays. Well, that's all I really have to say on the subject. So we may just leave it like.
Thank you, Swamiji.